Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce myself. I am Andrew Carnegie, a name many associate with steel, wealth, and philanthropy. But my journey, like any great story, began in humble surroundings, far removed from the industries that would one day bear my mark. To understand who I became, you must first understand where I came from, and how those early years shaped the man who would rise to prominence. So, let me take you back to a time of struggle, sacrifice, and an unrelenting drive to succeed. I was born on November 25, 1835, in the small town of Dunfermline, Scotland, into a modest family. My father, William Carnegie, was a skilled handloom weaver, but as fate would have it, the advent of the Industrial Revolution saw machines replacing skilled laborers like my father. The weaving industry, once a proud and profitable trade, fell into decline. As a young boy, I witnessed the toll this took on our family. We were hard-working, but still, poverty clung to us. It was not long before my father could no longer provide for our modest needs, and the future looked bleak. But my mother, Margaret, was a force of nature. It was her indomitable spirit, her belief in the possibility of a better life, that ultimately propelled us forward. In 1848, when I was but 12 years old, she made the decision that changed our lives forever. We left Scotland behind and set sail for America, the land of opportunity. I remember that voyage well. It was fraught with uncertainty, fear, and yet filled with a quiet sense of hope. We arrived in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, where my family found themselves cramped into a small two-room home. It was a far cry from comfort, but it was a start. My father struggled to find work in this new world, and the burden of supporting our family fell squarely on my mother's shoulders. I knew, even at that young age, that it would be up to me to contribute and to pull us out of our destitution. My first job, at the age of 13, was as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory. It was grueling work, requiring me to change bobbins on spinning machines for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I earned a mere $1.20 a week, a pittance, but I was proud to bring home that small sum to help my family. Those early years taught me the value of hard work, discipline, and perseverance, but it wasn't long before I sought more. I was hungry, not for food, but for knowledge, for opportunity, and for a way out of the grinding poverty that had defined our lives for so long. At 16, fortune smiled on me when I became a telegraph messenger boy for the Ohio Telegraph Company. It was here that I began to see the potential for something greater. I studied the telegraph system obsessively, learning not just to deliver messages, but to read and interpret them by ear. This diligence paid off when I was promoted to telegraph operator, and more importantly, it put me in the path of people who would help open doors to my future. The most pivotal moment came in 1853, when I was just 18 years old. I was hired as a secretary and telegraph operator for Thomas A. Scott of the Pennsylvania Railroad. This was my true education in business. Under Scott's mentorship, I learned the inner workings of the railroad industry, the importance of leadership, and how to seize opportunities when they presented themselves. When the American Civil War broke out, Scott was appointed Assistant Secretary of War, and I followed him to Washington, where I was responsible for overseeing military railways and telegraph systems. This experience sharpened my organizational skills and gave me a taste of responsibility on a grand scale. But more than that, it showed me the power of industry and transportation in shaping the future of a nation. I saw clearly that railroads were the arteries of commerce, and I vowed to make my mark in this burgeoning industry. In the years following the war, I invested wisely. I made my first substantial investment in the Adams Express Company, which was involved in the burgeoning transportation industry. But the real turning point came in 1870, when I founded the Keystone Bridge Company and later Carnegie Steel Company. I realized that America's future lay in steel. It would build our railroads, our skyscrapers, our cities. My business philosophy was simple: cut costs, innovate, and always stay ahead of the competition. I introduced the Bessemer process to my steel mills, which allowed us to produce steel more efficiently and at a lower cost than anyone else. My factories ran day and night, and I invested every penny back into expanding my operations. By 1889, Carnegie Steel was the largest and most profitable industrial enterprise in the world. I had become a millionaire many times over, and yet I knew that wealth alone was not enough. You see, I never believed that the purpose of life was simply to accumulate wealth. Rather, I believed that those of us who were fortunate enough to amass great fortunes had a moral obligation to use that wealth for the greater good. In 1889, I wrote my essay, The Gospel of Wealth, in which I argued that the wealthy must live modestly and use their riches to improve society. To die rich, I believed, was a disgrace. In keeping with this philosophy, I dedicated the latter part of my life to giving away my fortune. Libraries, schools, and universities across the world bear my name. I established the Carnegie Corporation, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and numerous other philanthropic endeavors. By the time of my death in 1919, I had given away over $350 million, a sum greater than my own personal fortune at its height. And so, as I reflect on my life, I see it as a testament to the idea that anyone, no matter how humble their beginnings, can rise to greatness through hard work, perseverance, and a vision of something greater than oneself. I began as a poor immigrant boy, and I ended as one of the wealthiest men in the world, not because I was born into privilege, but because I believed in the power of industry, innovation, and giving back. I leave you with this. Wealth is not an end in itself, but a means to improve the lives of others. That is the true measure of success. Use what you have wisely, and remember that the ultimate legacy you leave behind is not the wealth you amass, but the good you do with it.